That's how I am. I like it on other people, but I can't be bothered. I don't miss it at all." These were the words of a woman who had once made the entire world fall in love with her face, and yet, she never quite loved the spotlight herself. Jean Shrimpton defined the swinging 60s, the Vogue covers, the love affair with David Bailey, the effortless beauty that turned her into the symbol of a new era. She had everything the 1960s promised: fame, beauty, and a cultural revolution at her feet. Yet, behind those magazine pages and flashing cameras, she remained something else entirely: a quiet, introverted girl who never planned to become the face of a generation. It all began with one moment. One dress. One photograph. A simple choice that changed everything. What she wore that day shouldn't have mattered, but in 1965, it did. It became a national scandal that would echo for decades. But behind those headlines and photographs was someone misunderstood: a shy girl from a small farm, trapped in an industry that celebrated her image but ignored her soul. She was told she was the most beautiful woman in the world, yet inside she felt fragile, even broken, haunted by what she once called a neurosis that could be exploited. And then, at the peak of her fame, when she was the most photographed woman alive, Jean Shrimpton made a decision that shocked everyone. She disappeared. She walked away from it all. So what really happened to the woman who defined an entire era? And why does her vanishing act remain one of fashion's most fascinating mysteries? Jean Shrimpton's story didn't begin in London or Paris, but on a quiet farm in Buckinghamshire, surrounded by animals and the rhythm of rural life. Born in 1942, her childhood was simple, a mix of peace and isolation. "I was a reserved girl," she would later admit. "I was never part of a gang, and yet I wanted to please too." There was nothing in that quiet countryside to suggest she'd one day grace the covers of the world's most prestigious magazines. At 17, unsure of her path, Jean enrolled in a secretarial college in London, dutifully learning to type, planning an ordinary future. But fate had other plans. Her striking looks, what she modestly called waifish and coltish, caught everyone's eye. One day, while daydreaming at a zebra crossing, a film director spotted her. It was the kind of fairy tale discovery people dream of. But the promise quickly vanished. The producer wasn't interested, and Jean was left, in her words, crushed. Yet, the spark had been lit. On the director's advice, she joined the Lucy Clayton modeling school, and soon, the quiet farm girl was appearing in catalogs. At 5'10", with a slender frame, large, soulful eyes, and that famous fringe, Jean didn't look like anyone else. She was the opposite of the polished, aristocratic models of the 1950s, and that difference became her power. Years later, she would admit, "I never liked being photographed. I just happened to be good at it." But being good didn't mean it was easy. In those early days, she traveled across London on a shoestring budget, clutching her A to Z guide, visiting studios in the strangest corners of the city. She often felt awkward, out of place, and unseen. Photographer Larry Neal later recalled, "You were the most gawky, awkward thing I'd ever seen." Yet in front of the camera, something magical happened. She came alive. She had an unspoken grace that photographers were desperate to capture. And then came David Bailey, the man who would change everything. She met him during a Vogue shoot. He introduced himself simply as Bailey. He was 5 years older, loud, rebellious, full of raw energy. The complete opposite of Jean's quiet nature. But opposites attract. "We were instantly drawn to each other," she later confessed. She ended her relationship, he ended his marriage, and together, they became the iconic couple of swinging London. "When I was first with Bailey, it was great fun," Jean recalled. "We were very much in love, and everything was opening up for us. It was a magical time." Their big break came in 1962 when British Vogue sent them to New York for a story called The Young Idea. The editors were nervous. Bailey wanted to take Jean, an unknown girl, instead of an established model. But he refused to go without her. And that decision changed fashion forever. Instead of shooting elegant poses in front of landmarks, Bailey took Jean into the streets Harlem, Chinatown, old shooting galleries, places no one would have dared to use for high fashion. The photos were raw, alive, full of motion. It was a revolution. Bailey's philosophy was simple: he wanted truth, not glamour. The clothes mattered less than the girl wearing them, and that girl was Jean Shrimpton. Her quiet melancholy became the soul of those photographs. They captured not just fashion, but emotion, life, movement, youth. It was the birth of modern fashion photography. The world took notice. The images stunned editors and audiences alike. Bailey and Shrimpton became stars. They didn't just represent the 60s, they were the 60s. But fame came with a price. While Bailey earned fortune and control over his work, Jean posed, smiled, and earned her daily rate. She was his muse, his inspiration, and his product. The dynamic was powerful but painful. "He made a lot of money out of me," she later said. Their relationship, full of love and creative energy, also carried tension. And when it ended, Jean was left standing alone in a world she never truly chose. By 1965, she was the most famous model in the world, appearing on the covers of Vogue, Harper's Bazaar, even Time. But that same year, a simple white dress would make her both legendary and infamous. She was invited to Australia's Melbourne Cup as a judge, a glamorous event filled with rules, hats, gloves, and tradition. But Jean broke them all. Her dress, made hastily by her London designer, was 4 inches above the knee, and she wore no hat, no gloves, no stockings. The crowd gasped. The press went wild. "No hat! No gloves! No stockings!" screamed the headlines. For the first time since 1861, the winning horse wasn't the story, it was Jean's legs. "I was surrounded by cameramen, all on their knees," she said later. "I had no idea this was going to happen." That single outfit is now remembered as the moment the miniskirt went global. One dress and suddenly, fashion had changed forever. But while the world celebrated, Jean felt exhausted. The fame, the labels, the endless attention, it began to crush her. She hated being called the shrimp. She hated how everyone controlled her image but never cared about her as a person. "People who want to be successful are neurotic," she once said. "I had this neurosis which could be exploited, and it was." Her next relationship, with actor Terence Stamp, was supposed to be different, but it wasn't. They were London's golden couple, yet Jean felt invisible. He never gave her a key to their flat. He mocked her acting dreams. And worst of all, she later discovered he had secretly taken a commission from her modeling work, 10% of her earnings, without telling her. When she found out, she ended it immediately. By now, Jean was drained emotionally and financially. Despite her fame, she had almost nothing to show for it. Image rights didn't exist in those days. The photographers grew rich off her face, she just collected small payments. So, in her early 30s, Jean Shrimpton made the most shocking decision of her life. She quit. No announcement, no scandal, no final photo shoot. She simply walked away. She moved to the coast of Cornwall, a quiet, windswept place far from London's noise. There, she opened an antique shop. Later, with her husband Michael Cox, she bought a historic hotel overlooking the sea. Her wedding reception was simple: 2 witnesses, champagne, and fish and chips. For over 40 years, she ran the Abbey Hotel by hand, raised her son, and lived in peace. She called herself reticent to the point of reclusive. When her ghost-written autobiography came out in 1990, she said she only agreed because she needed money to fix the roof. "I've hated publicity all my life," she said. By 2023, at 81, she finally put the hotel up for sale, ready to retire fully. She once described herself as a melancholy soul, damaged goods, in her words, but in Cornwall, she found the quiet she'd always wanted. Jean Shrimpton's life is one of the great paradoxes in fashion history. She was the woman who defined freedom, youth, and rebellion, but she spent her life searching for escape. She was the world's first supermodel who never wanted to be one. Before her, models were perfect, distant, untouchable. After her, they were human, real, emotional, full of personality. Jean paved the way for Twiggy, Kate Moss, and every model who came after. And yet, her greatest legacy isn't in the magazines or photographs, it's in her choice to walk away. In a world obsessed with fame, Jean Shrimpton's quiet rebellion remains her most powerful act. So what was her true legacy? The revolution she inspired in fashion, or the peace she found in anonymity? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.